Hello guys, Aaron with Literacy and Math Ideas, and today let's talk about finding the vertex of a parabola by completing the square. And the goal of an exercise like this is to take an equation that may look like y equal x squared plus 16x minus 30 and convert it to an equivalent form that looks like this: y equal x plus 8 squared minus 94. And these two equations are identical in terms of their curve on an xy coordinate plane. However, this is in a form called standard form, and this is in a form called vertex form. And there's advantages in both forms. But we're going to learn how to convert it into convert a standard form equation of a parabola into vertex form by completing the square. And when the equation is in vertex form, we can easily identify what the vertex is. And the vertex in this case is the point -8, -94. All right, and we're going to go over all the details around that. So the first step in finding the vertex of a parabola by completing the square is to first make sure that the equation is in standard form. I'm going to abbreviate it SF, standard form. Then the next step is to make sure that the coefficient of x squared is 1. And then from there, we can identify the b value. And we're going to talk about what all of that is. And then once you identify the b value, then we're going to find, or I should say calculate, this expression, b divided by 2 squared. Then we're going to add and subtract the resulting value. Okay. Once we do that, we can then factor the perfect square trinomial. And so what this is here, this is a perfect square trinomial. Okay. And so we're going to go through this step by step so that it would all become clear. So it's just 6 steps. And it's really, some of these steps can be eliminated if the equation is already in standard form and if the coefficient of x squared is already 1. All right, so let's go through. We're going to work through a few examples, and you can kind of see the differences in the different flavors. So let's look at the first one again. Okay, and the first one is y equal x squared plus 16x minus 30. And so this is in standard form. How do we know it's in standard form? Because the standard form looks like this: y equal ax squared plus bx plus c. All right, if your equation is in this form, then it is in standard form. And what we can see here is that our a value corresponds to 1. And the 1 is right here. It is not shown, and when it is not shown, it is equivalent to 1. The b value is 16, and the c value is -30. Okay, so if you can identify your various a, b, and c values, and if it's in this format, then it is in standard form. All right, so we already checked off the first item. Now, we have to make sure that the coefficient of x squared is also 1. And in this case, it is absolutely 1. So a has to be 1. A must be 1. Now, what if a is not 1? What do? Let's say we had y equal 2x plus 16x minus 30. Then what you'll have to do is must factor out the coefficient from all terms. Okay, you must factor it out. What does that look like? We're going to work an example, but since I put this on here, I want to go ahead and show you what it looks like. You have to say 2, put a bracket here, x squared, and we're factoring out a 2 from all the terms. So this will become 8x, and this will become 15. All right? And then you will work with just this piece of it for the rest of the steps that we have identified above. All right, and we'll see an example like this. So we have to make sure the coefficient of the x squared term is 1, which it is. And then now we have to identify the b value. What do I mean by the b value? Is the b value I just talked about right here. Let's rewrite the problem, make it nice and clean. Got y equal x squared plus 16x minus 30. The b value is positive 16. That's the b value. And that's what we have to find as a first step in completing the square. Then we have to find or calculate b divided by 2 squared. Very easy to do. We just have to say b divided by 2 squared, which is equal to 16 divided by 2 squared, which is equal to 8 squared, which gives us 64. Now, the next step is to add and subtract the resulting value of 64. So we know that the value we calculated was 64. So I'm going to add and subtract that value. And why do I need to add and subtract it? Because I don't want to make any net change in my equation. So I have to add and subtract this value. So let's go ahead and do that. Y equal x squared plus 16x, this is where I add it, plus 64, and then I'm going to subtract it, minus 64, then the rest of the problem, minus 30. And I did that because this is a perfect square trinomial. Very important, because this can be factored, all right, just that portion of it. So we're going to say y is equal to x plus 8 times x plus 8. And then we write down the rest of the problem, minus 64 minus 30. Okay, so we went from here to here by factoring. So now this looks like x plus 8 squared, and then we can calculate what this is. Negative 64 minus 30 is negative 94. And we have put this in vertex form, like what we see up here. And when we do that, here's how we can identify what the vertex is. The value of x that makes this expression within the parentheses equal to 0, the value of x is the x value for the vertex. So the value that will make this 0 is x equal negative 8. Because if we put a negative 8 in here, what we have is negative 8 plus 8, which is 0. 0 squared is 0. So what we were left with is y equal negative 94. And that is the y value. So the vertex is at x equal negative 8, y equal negative 94. That is the vertex. And if we graph this, we will see exactly that. So let's go ahead and graph that real quick. I like to use desmos.com, and we can say y equal x squared plus 16x minus 30. And let's take a good look at this graph here. Let's zoom in a little bit. And here you can see that the vertex is negative 8 minus 94. So that's the way of doing that. And it's pretty straightforward. This parabola opens up, and the way you know it opens up is because you go back and look at the original problem, and you look at the value of a I was talking about up here, the value of a, And if a is positive, if a is greater than 0, then the parabola opens up. And when I say opens up, I mean, let me get some clean space here. Here's what I mean. You have your XY coordinate plane, and you have a parabola that's drawn on here. And this parabola opens up. The arrows are pointing up. If, on the other hand, the value of a is negative, the parabola opens down. So this is up and this is down. When a is greater than 0, this is what the graph is going to do. When a is less than 0, this is what the graph is going to do. Okay, let's look at another example real quick. Let's say y equal 10x squared plus 20x minus 50. All right, this equation is in standard form. However, the vertex of this equation is not obvious. So we can find the vertex by completing the square. First step, right? First step is we want to make the coefficient of x squared 1. And we see that it's not 1. The coefficient is 10. So we're going to factor this coefficient out by doing this. And I was showing you this earlier. X squared plus 2x minus 5. Now we can continue on. We're going to set this 10 aside for right now. We're not going to forget about it. It's going to come in handy later. But we're just going to put it aside. We factored it out. And we're going to just work on this piece right here. Apply all the steps that we came up with before. These are the steps right up here. Let me see if I can move this further down for us. So we have it in standard form already. And now we're looking at the coefficient, and we made the coefficient here 1. And so now we have to identify the b value of this portion. And the b value in this case is 2. B is equal to 2. Now let's calculate b divided by 2 squared. And so that's going to equal to 2 divided by 2 squared, which is simply 1 squared, which is 1. So now I'm going to add and subtract the resulting value. So let's go ahead and do just that. Y is equal to 10 x squared plus 2x. Then I'm going to say plus 1 minus 1. And then the rest of the problem is minus 5 close bracket. And again, the reason I do that is because this is now a perfect square trinomial that can be factored. All right, so let's go ahead and factor that. Y is equal to 10, and it's going to be x plus 1 times x plus 1, then minus 1 minus 5, close bracket. Now, we just factored the perfect square trinomial. Let's go ahead and finish simplifying. Y is equal to 10. This is x plus 1 squared. And negative 1 minus 5 is negative 6. But we're still not done, even though this looks pretty close to the vertex form. It's not completely done because remember I told you can't forget about this 10 that's here. So we have to distribute this 10 to that term. This is a term right here. We have to distribute it to that term right there. So let's do that. Y is equal to 10x plus 1 squared minus 60. Okay, now we're done. So we have to ask ourselves a question. What value of x will make that 0? This piece right here is what I'm asking. And the value is negative 1. And let's go ahead and put negative 1 there and see what happens. So we have 10 minus 1 plus 1 squared minus 60. What do we have? We have y equal, this all goes to 0. That is 0. So the whole thing here is 0. So we have y equals negative 60. And so that's exactly what the vertex will be. So the vertex for this one is at -1, -60. Let's go ahead and pop that into Desmos real quick and see what we get. Y equal 10x squared plus 20x minus 50. All right. Let's remove that guy. Let's see what this looks like. No. All right. This says x is -1 and y is 60, -60. All right. So you can see this is 2 up here. And so this is -1 right here. So that kind of verifies that our calculation is correct. Okay, let's look at a slightly different one involving the same concept. We go here and write it down. Y equal -3x times quantity x plus 6 plus 18. Okay. In this case, let me bring back a list of procedures. What we can see here is that it is not in standard form. This is not in standard form. So let's put it into standard form before we do anything else. So let's go ahead and distribute this guy and get this thing into standard form so we can continue with the rest of our steps. So this is going to be y equal -3x squared minus 18x plus 18. All right, now this is in standard form. So what it means is that we can now continue with step number 2. The coefficient has to be 1. The coefficient of x squared has to be 1, and it's not 1 right now. So we have to factor. All right, now it may look like that this was factored already, but it was not. So we have to factor the whole thing, take -3 out of every term. So we're going to do that right now. So we got y is equal to -3. And we're going to leave the rest in there. And this would be 6x minus 6. Okay. And always check your work along the way to make sure that, especially involving negative signs. So -3 times x squared is -3x squared. -3 times positive 6x is -18x. And -3 times -6 is positive 18. So this is the proper factoring, right, of this guy. So now we need to identify the b-value of this polynomial. Okay, and the b-value is 6. And now we know the b-value, we have to calculate b divided by 2 quantity squared. So 6 divided by 2 squared is 3 squared, which is equal to 9. The next step is to add and subtract 9. So let's do that. We got y is equal to -3 x squared plus 6x plus 9 minus 9 minus 6. Now, this is a perfect square trinomial, and we need to go ahead and factor that. So this would be x plus 3x plus 3. And I always take a minute again to check your work to make sure that you're doing it correctly. So x times x is x squared. And then this is going to be 3x. And then another 3x here. So that's going to be 6x. And then 3 times 3 is 9, positive 9. So we're good here. Then we have to look at this piece right here and say -9 minus 6 is -15. then close bracket. So simplifying this further, we get negative 3 times x plus 3 squared minus 15. Okay, but we're not done. We have to distribute this negative 3 to both of these here. And so let's do that right now. We got y is equal to negative 3x plus 3 squared. And then negative 3 times negative 15 is a positive 45. So now we can simply look at this and determine, right? We can see here that, well, a negative 3 will make this expression go to 0. So our x is negative 3. Then the y is just whatever's going to be left over, which is positive 45. So y is equal to 45. And so our vertex is at negative 3, positive 45. And this this parabola, all right, let's look at the problem. This parabola opens down. Well, we look at it in standard form, and we see that the coefficient of x squared is negative 3 to be exact, and so therefore this parabola opens down. So let's go ahead and punch that into Desmos and see exactly what it looks like. All right, let's zoom out. Take a good look at this parabola, what it's doing. Well, you can see here that, okay, for one, it opens down, the curve is going down, and the vertex is right here at x negative 3 and positive 45 on the y-axis. That's the point, all right, where this parabola is at the highest point in this case, since it opens down. All right, so that's kind of what I want to go over. Let's do one bonus problem. All right, one bonus problem. Let's do this one right here. Y equal negative x squared. That's it. Y equal negative x squared. So is it in standard form? And the answer is yes. Is it in standard form? And so you may be asking, well, where are my a, b, and c values? Well, if you look at this thing carefully, we'll see that the standard form looks like this. Y equal ax squared plus bx plus c. So our a value is, in this case, a is equal to negative 1. Right? Again, when you don't see a 1 explicitly written here, it is a 1 that is in fact here. In this case, it's a negative 1. A is negative 1. And so what is b and c? Well, in this case, b and c is simply 0. Right? So we can think of this like this. 0x plus 0. And so 0 times anything is 0, plus 0 is still 0. So this is really negative x squared plus 0, which you can just say negative x squared. So this is in standard form already. All right, now we need to identify the b value. Well, the b value is 0. So we have to calculate next b divided by 2 squared is simply going to be 0 divided by 2, which is 0, and 0 squared is still 0. So the vertex is actually at 0, 0. So one way to kind of explicitly write that out is to go ahead and simply say, let's write this out the way we normally would. And in a case like that, you can go through the motions to actually say y is equal to x minus 0 squared plus 0. Right? If you actually walk through all the steps we did before. So, and this is negative. So I might make sure I do that. So x is 0 here. And then what's left over is also 0. And so we can graph that on Desmos. And by the way, this parabola opens down because we have a negative value for a. All right, but let's look at it on Desmos real quick. It opens down, and it is right at the origin at 0, 0. All right, guys, I wanted to go over that with you. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to our channel. We will be adding more videos and so forth. I do have a document that you can download that have several additional problems just like this that would make the point salient to solving this type of problem that is very common. You will see it. So I do have a document. Click on the link below to look at it and download. Thanks.